Live picture from London, where Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee gets into high gear over the weekend. Did we mention that Erica Hill is heading there right now, even as we speak? She's rushing to JFK to get on a plane. Turns out another towering British figure is enjoying an anniversary today, too. That would be Big Ben.
The clock on that famous tower first started ticking on this date in 1859. Charlie D'Agata is at the top of the tower. It's the first time any American television network has broadcast live from there. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning to you, Charlie. What you heard a short time ago is this quarter bell ringing on the half hour. That is the mighty Big Ben itself, and believe me, up here it is loud. Normally you have to be British to be allowed up here. They have made an exception for Americans to be up here to share in the celebrations ahead of the Queen's Jubilee weekend. Time waits for no man. Time, the great healer. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Well, maybe not the worst of times. The monarch is about to have her Diamond Jubilee, after all, so any references to time had better be in celebration. Which is just as well, because Big Ben, that other great British icon, is arguably the most celebrated landmark in the UK. It's a feat of engineering.
It was a major feat of engineering, even in its time, of course.
And today it marks an anniversary of its own, 153 years since its clock first started ticking. Behind that face we all know so well is a man who knows a thing or two about time, big time. The keeper of the great clock?
Yes, well, the keeper of the great Westminster clock, to give it its Victorian title.
He keeps the great clock ticking, and it's the clock that rings the bell, the great bell, better known as Big Ben. So Big Ben is the bell, it's not the clock, it's not the tower.
No, it's purely the hour bell, but to be honest now, it's become known for the whole thing. This lever will move.
We also got a rare glimpse at the inner workings of the clock. Not only what makes it tick, but bong. Its mechanism was technologically years ahead of its time. It's almost a miracle that it does work, and that it has kept working.
When they actually built the clock in about 1854, they had to get this clock that was the most accurate clock ever built.
The first stroke of each hour had to be accurate to within 1 second. Ian Westworth, the mechanic who's been winding the clock, literally, for the past 7 years, wants to keep it that way. He has an old-fashioned fix, pennies.
By putting on or taking off a penny on the pendulum like this, you speed up or slow down the clock by 2/5 of a second in 24 hours.
But the guts of the 5-ton mechanism are much more heavy-duty. Every 15 minutes, weights attached by wires to the clock plummet down a shaft, striking the 4 smaller quarter-hour bells.
Everybody always gets shocked by the amount of noise that generates.
Big Ben has been striking on the hour every hour for the past 150 years. The first time it rang out across London, that other long-serving monarch was on the throne, Queen Victoria. Who, incidentally, has got a tower named after her, the Victoria Tower, which faces Big Ben across Westminster Palace. Big Ben is slightly shorter than its bigger sister, but you wouldn't know it making your way up its 334 steps all the way to the belfry. It's 200 feet high, not quite high enough to see the East London Foundry, where Big Ben the Bell was cast. Alan Hughes runs that business now, a business that's been trading for 500 years and counts the original Liberty Bell among its creations. He knows a thing or two about history and says the bell's nickname could have been down to a rather portly Victorian politician.
His nickname was Big Ben by virtue of his size, and it's said that one young MP in the back benches somewhere, thoroughly tired of this long speech, when Sir Benjamin Hall finally sat down, stood up and said, "Why don't we just call it Big Ben?" Everyone laughed, and like so many stories, it stuck.
The bell, which sold for the grand sum of £572, or about $900, was nicknamed before it was even hung.
In May 1858, the bell had not even been hung in the tower. We refer in our book to £4 of the old Big Ben.
Naming the 13.5-ton bell was the easy part.
We have always understood that this was part of the tow rope used for towing the bell from Whitechapel to Westminster. The task was carried out by 16 white horses, and when it arrived in Westminster, it was hauled up the tower with a gang of men working on a capstan and reeved ropes.
It was a remarkable feat of engineering and manpower that produced an enduring monument on the city's skyline, echoing across London, marking out time.
Now, Big Ben is the bell. The building we're standing in is actually called Clock Tower, but some British politicians want to rename it Elizabeth Tower in honor of the Queen's 60th anniversary.
Charlie, how loud is the clock?
It's indescribable. Your whole body shakes, and even if you cover your ears, you have to wait a good 20-30 seconds before it's even close to bearable.
Yes. Charlie, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Charlie
Just about.
D'Agata?
When did your hearing begin to go?
You know what I think is so great, Charlie, until your report today, I did not know that Big Ben was actually the bell. I always thought it was the whole clock.
And
so I love it when I learn something on CBS this morning.
And now she's learned everything she's always wanted to know about Big Ben and more.
Everything you've ever wanted to know.
And then
more.
some. Thank you, Charlie D'Agata. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.